Let's tear it down. Today we'll be tearing down our Atari CX2600 video computer system. Just to give you a little bit of history of this for those that were not around during the time or not old enough, this was the game console that pretty much started it all pretty much. As before that you only had a Pong or other Pong-like consoles, but you didn't have very many options during the time. And this was one of the first game consoles that actually set everything apart pretty much, where you can actually play different games and it could display sort of complex graphics during the time. And they did this, and they managed to do this through Atari's custom television interface adapter, which is actually a chip that's inside this console, which we'll be looking at once we tear it down. During 1977, this was an expensive console. This was $199, which was very expensive during 1977, and if you calculate for inflation, it would be around $700 in today's dollar. When you consider a PS3, for example, cost about $650, so there's actually cost a little bit more to release if you consider inflation and all than even the PS3 when it was released. So that goes to show you how expensive these were. But of course there was nothing else on the market that could compete against this during the time. So they first, when they introduced them, they sold about 250,000 of them, and then in 1979 when they started picking up, it sold over 1 million of these consoles at the time. So it just goes to show you how well it took off until about 1983. You had the whole video game crash, of course, and stuff like that, but we won't go into that. So we're going to go ahead and be tearing this thing down, looking to see what makes this tick. First thing you want to go ahead and do though, if you're planning on taking apart yours or looking to repair it, you guys see these screws right here that are at a 30-degree angle. There's 4 of them. You got to take those out. And then right here, there's 2 right here. There's 1 there. And then I'm not sure these screws were originally with the console or someone put that on there after the fact. But I'm going to go and remove those screws, and I'll bring the camera closer at down view so that way we can go and look to see what's inside. So I went ahead and removed the 6 screws that are holding this top cover to the actual bottom cover, and then these 2 screws here at the washer that I wasn't so sure about actually come from factory. That's used to hold the heavy RF shielding that you'll see once I take this off. So let's go and take the cover off so we can see her in her glory. And then there you go. And here's the heavy RF shielding that these 2 screws on the bottom are holding. It was holding this down. And then you can see a separate PCB board, which I'm kind of shocked. You can see the board that actually connects to this board. We'll take it out, of course, but this is your switches. This is probably the RF right here, because you can see the RF can, and then you can see this here, which actually unplugs, which will unplug that. And it has a date code of September 27, 1980. So we're going to go and lift this up and see what's underneath it. And then here you go. And I might have to take out more screws, of course, to get this shield completely off so we can see the guts inside though, but there's nothing really interesting in the back. This is your control ports, which is on this secondary board. You can see it connects via a ribbon cable which goes to this board here. So I'm going to go ahead and get this completely apart. You just take these 2 screws here, disconnect this ribbon cable, and this should come completely apart. So I'm going to go and do that, and I'll be right back with you once I'm done. I'm going to go and get this RF shield out so we can see what's underneath it pretty much. So went ahead and extracted the main board out of the RF shielding. In order to do that, you have to remove the 6 remaining screws that hold this bottom cover on there. These 2 remaining ones will be empty, because that's what actually holds this whole entire RF shielding to that back plastic casing there with those 2 screws and washers. So once you get done doing that, you'll be greeted the back side of the board. Just remove the 2 bottom screws that secure the board to this RF shielding, and then you'll be able to gently lift the board out of the RF shielding. So we'll go and put this aside real quick, and then we'll look at the main board here, which is the main part of the Atari CX2600. And here you go, you can see the 2 joystick ports, a little bit corroded because obviously it's from 1977, but I will clean it up when I restore this. Here's your DC input. This here is for your ROM cartridges, which get inserted into there. And then here's your chips. But before you look at it, you can see this connector right here. That connects to this main switchboard right here, and they call this the 6 switcher because there's 6 switches. Here's a voltage regulator right there with heat shielding. See your capacitor right there. Here's your RF stage. This is your RF output, and then here's where the output actually is, which goes to the cable. And then this here is your channel selector switch, so if you want an output on 3 or 4. Then we'll look at the back side there. And not much interest there, nothing behind this board there. And here's a ground plane right here, or probably for heat dissipation. So then there you go. And then we'll look at the main board right here. It's this first chip right here. It's actually the RAM IO chip. This is the right chip right here. So let me see if I can focus in on that. That's your MOS right there. And then this one here is your CPU. This is actually the 6507 CPU. This is the slimmer version of the 6502. So let's see if we can get it to zoom in there. And then there you go. And they're socketed too, which is pretty nice. And then this here is the main glory of the actual Atari 2600. And that's your TIA adapter, your television interface adapter chip. And that's what actually was responsible for the 6 components which made up for the complex graphics. Your playing field, your 2 sprite 8 pixel line, a ball single pixel, and your 2 missiles 2 pixel lines pretty much. And a combination of that is what gave it its complex graphics there. And the reason why they did that is because there was no video memory on this. And the reason why there was no video memory because memory was just ridiculously expensive during that time and stuff. So the CPU actually communicated direct, and it did it line by line and stuff. So that's pretty much how you were able to get your graphics. And then it also did the 2-track 1-bit monaural tracks that actually for the sound output for the Atari 2600. But here you go. And then here's a nice big crystal too. And we'll go and look at that. And here we'll go and just give you a general overview of the board so you can go and see it all in its glory. Really dusty card slot there. You can see the pins go right to the bottom of that. And then here's the back side of the board, which there's really nothing much interest there because there's no components in the back side of the board. But there you go, pretty much. And that's pretty much the guts of an Atari CX 2600 game, or at least they called it video computer system. So if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and comment below, and I'll do more videos like this similarly in the future. As a bonus, I'm going to be tearing down this controller, as it wouldn't be complete to tear down a game console without tearing down the controller too as well. So then here's the Atari controller. This here is just a joystick, and then this is your fire button. To go ahead and get it apart, you do have to remove the 4 screws. And then once you get done removing those screws, which is just pretty much salt tappers that go into the plastic there, you just go ahead and pop this out here very carefully though, because there's a spring right here that you don't want to lose that goes to the fire button, so you can go and put that aside there. And we'll take a look at the PCB board real quick, and it's pretty simple. Just pretty much switches right here, and that's it. Nothing in the back. Just the cables that connect to the actual port right here, which goes into the main board, but that's it. And then as far as the actual controller itself, this is how it's kept in place. It got this plastic here. Let me go and let it focus. And then it got this plastic that keeps this from turning any further, so when you turn, you can't turn it because it's stopped right there. And it rides along this. Let's go and remove this real quick here, so it keeps it center. So when you're pushing down, you're not pushing too far down when this goes all the way, down. It actually keeps it, and then you can maneuver this back and forth, and it rides, of course, along these two as well. So this keeps it. So when you push, you're actually pushing on the switch depending on what direction you're going at. So it keeps it in place. And then here's rubber. It is actually quite in good shape. No tears or nothing for its age. But There you go. That's the controller to the Atari CX 2600.